The artistry is breathless, created by the jagged teeth of ancient ice. For thousands of years, mammoth glaciers traversed this geography, sculpting it, changing the faces of untold varieties of flora and fauna, reshaping the sands and waters, and performing the miracle we know today as the Indiana Dunes. It's safe to say that there is no other place on Earth quite like the dunes which guard the southern rim of the lake the Indians called Gitche Gumee. Each year, thousands of people explore the wonders these shifting sands so proudly present. Today, you share in that exploration and have at your fingertips an opportunity to discover a magnificent and ever-changing land on this, a wondrous journey. To fully enjoy and understand the journey into nature on which you are about to embark, you must become familiar with the awesome geological forces which created this phenomenon. And to do this, you must go back in time many thousands of years. The Great Wisconsin Glacier, the last of 3 mammoth glaciers to cover this area, was an astounding mass of moving ice more than 5,500 miles wide and 3,000 miles long. The sheer weight and force of the glacier's movement scraped and eroded the land, picking up rocks and stones as it went. These often were ground and worn to a much smaller size before finally being deposited on the land as the glacier melted. In fact, the very sand which composes the rolling symphony of beaches and dunes which ribbon the southern shores of Lake Michigan is actually the glacial residue which was deposited on the northern rim of the lake. Strong Lake Michigan currents have brought the sand here, depositing it into the sculpting hands of the wind. Soon, in geological time, the shifting sands erupted into great dunes and gave life to an astonishing variety of vegetation. The meltwater of the Wisconsin Glacier also created another natural wonder in this cauldron of miracles, when it melted and became Lake Michigan. Today, this truly great lake is the catalyst of the continuing change which shapes this area. Where it took water and ice and thousands of years to make the sand, the birth of a dune is a more rapid process. It begins on the beaches, known locally as singing sands, because of a unique musical sound made by pulling one's foot or hand through the crystals under certain humidity conditions. The beaches, and in fact the dunes we enjoy today, are literally in motion, changing, rearranging. The reason? The very nature of the media, sand and wind. At 7 miles per hour, the wind teases and bounces and rolls grains of sand inland from the water's edge. At 20 miles per hour, the sand is actually picked up and blown through the air. These currents carry the sand along until it encounters an obstacle or the wind dies down. Here the sand drops to the ground and begins to mound up. Through time and storm, the dune is born. This incredible dynamic foundation is the host for an astonishing array of wildlife, beginning with plants. In the early 1900s, a botanist named H.C. Coles began to study the dunes and to notice the incredible natural changes which occurred here over time. Coles observed that only certain and limited species of plants could survive in the harsh and unforgiving environment of the sand. He called these plants the pioneers. They were hardy and strong and adventuresome, taking root in the tenuous ground and becoming the obstacles which captured the sand from the grip of the wind. The very presence of the pioneers also shaded the land, changing the light and temperature conditions. The roots aerated the soil, their leaves added humidity to the air, and as they died, they added organic matter to the soil. Ironically enough, the great strength of the pioneer species often became what made them extinct, for they frequently changed the physical conditions of the area so much that they themselves could no longer flourish here. So dramatically did they change the land that it became ideal for a new plant species to move in. These too brought their own changes, and the cycle began again. Yet newer species wandered in, took root, and changed the environment. Each plant community, in addition, was ideal to support and attract its own animal counterparts. Thus did an intriguing cycle create the wondrous environment we know today. H.C. Coles had discovered in this incredible series of events a natural phenomenon called succession. This theory of succession is now a basic principle of modern-day ecology. While the word ecology did not come into use until much later, because of his work with succession, H.C. Coles is often called the father of ecology, and the Indiana Dunes its birthplace. Coles was not the only botanist to appreciate the splendor of the Indiana Dunes. Many others came as well to explore the rich diversity of floral life. Rich, indeed. Diverse. Quite simply, there is no place like it anywhere on Earth. Here in the dunes, one can find plants adapted to life in the desert, as well as vegetation indigenous to more Arctic climates. Here in Indiana Dunes State Park, you find oak forests, buttonbush marsh, a creek, swamp forests, ephemeral ponds, dunes, and, of course, coastal beaches. An exploration of each yields astounding surprise, hypnotic wonder, awe, and an appreciation of the miracle of life. These are the things which led naturalists and recreationists of long ago to come to the dunes, and come they did. Long before modern roads furnished easy access, people came to the dunes aboard the South Shore train. They came to enjoy nature, to escape the hustle and bustle of city life. They came to lay in the sun, to splash in the water, to hike in the hills. They came to study the plants and birds. They came to relax and enjoy, to dream and create. They came to refresh the life within them by experiencing the freshness of the dune life around them. The dunes became the social focal point of the Prairie Club, a conservationist group from Chicago which built a clubhouse here in the early years of the century. Each summer, members of the club would escape the clutch and cluster of the city by coming to the dunes. The Prairie Club produced extravagant annual pageants in the dunes, which attracted hundreds of spectators. So popular did these events become that the South Shore train brought people from the city especially to see the event. The awesome and breathtaking backdrop of the dunes was also used for the production of Hollywood motion pictures in the early black and white days of filmmaking. Then Chicago, not Hollywood, was the filmmaking capital of the world, and the Indiana Dunes served as the stunning backdrop for movie topics ranging from Arabian Nights sagas to desert island adventures. The tremendous potential for commerce presented by Lake Michigan also played an important role in the shaping of the dunes area. In pioneering days, French-Canadian voyageurs and trappers used the lake and its many tributaries as a primary transportation source, in those times prior to railroads and highways when water meant accessibility. This advantage was also not lost on the visionaries who gave shape to the Industrial Revolution. At the turn of the century, the sandy shores and the swampy marshlands of the southern rim were transformed by industry. The area became, in less than half a century, the largest steel-producing region in the world, with a ceaselessly abundant supply of water for manufacturing and transportation, Lake Michigan became an incredibly valuable industrial resource. The burgeoning of industry here gave birth to cities and towns. At the same time, sand was being mined from the dunes and from the lake itself by sandsucker boats which pulled sand up from the lake bottom to be sold in other regions. It became apparent to conservationists that the changing dunes were now being significantly altered by the hands of man. These conservationists, along with other concerned citizens and politicians, began their efforts to save the dunes. The first attempt to protect the area was an effort that would have designated it as Sand Dunes National Park. This attempt in 1916 was unsuccessful. Yet the citizens committed to saving the dunes were undaunted. Their efforts continued, and in 1925 the state of Indiana created the Indiana Dunes State Park. Here over 2,000 acres of natural wonder and beauty would be protected forever. 2/3 of the state park is, in fact, designated as Nature Preserve. Here the grand plan of nature is allowed to play itself out. The ecology is preserved in its natural state, protected from development. Nearly half a century later, the perpetual protection of these natural wonders was further enhanced with federal legislation which created the Indiana Dunes National Lakeshore. The national park surrounds the Indiana Dunes State Park and spans an area from Gary to Michigan City. Thus today, do we have the very delicate ecology of one of the world's most incredible places, existing side by side with one of the world's most important manufacturing centers. Indiana Dunes State Park. Diverse in habitats, plants, animals, geology, seasons. Mesmerizing in its beauty, incredible in detail, awesome in scope. Here you can relax, enjoy, explore. Here are beauty, wonder, fun. Here you can learn about the marvelous world in which we live. Here you can share in an ever-changing environment. So come with us on a wondrous journey. Join a naturalist program or explore on your own the miracle we call Indiana Dunes State Park.